But first, it's just one simple question. Are you OK? But for Jamie Harrington and the man he was speaking to, it was a life-changing question.
16-year-old Jamie was walking over a busy bridge when he saw a man in a distressed state sitting on the edge. He spoke to him for 45 minutes and he convinced him to go to hospital.
Well, Jamie's story's gone viral and he's here with us to tell us more about it. Good morning. We're also joined by Terry Rigby, who founded the organisation Forward for Life, which works to prevent suicide. Good to have you both.
Morning, guys.
Hi. So, tell us what happened, because you were 16 at the time.
I was 15 at the time.
You were 15 at the time, walking along, minding your own business, and you saw this gentleman sitting on the edge of a bridge.
I was out with a couple of mates and I decided I was going to head off and do my own thing for a couple of minutes, and I was walking across the Halfpenny Bridge in Dublin and I seen this guy sitting on the bridge, on the ledge of the bridge, and the bridge has two brick walls on each side of the bridge, and on the south side of the bridge he was sitting with his legs completely over the wall in a distressed state, crying, and I kind of went, he shouldn't be there. Is he okay? And I, without even thinking in my head, I just went up and went, are you okay? And he didn't say that, and he just looked at me, and I knew by the look on his face he wasn't okay. And I kind of went, look, come down off the wall, let's have a chat about this. It's not the answer. And it took a couple of minutes of convincing to get him down off the wall, and after a couple of minutes I got him eventually to come and sit on the path beside the bridge, and we sat for 45 minutes and talked about what was going on and what was making him feel like this. And I realised then, I looked at my phone and it's been 45 minutes gone by, and I went, wow. I said, look, this is a little bit more than having a chat with a random stranger. You're going to need to go and see a professional in the hospital. And he didn't want to go. He was, no, I'm fine, I'm happy here, please, I just want to walk around and walk it off. I kind of was like, look, you're not walking it off. It's not something you can just walk off. So I convinced him to allow me to ring an ambulance, and the ambulance came and took him to James's Hospital in Dublin.
And the sad thing about this story is that there were lots of other people who just walked on by.
I would presume at least 1,000 people walked by that man on that day.
Terry.
You were the first one who sat down and talked to him.
Yeah.
Terry, I mean, people are going to listen to what happened and think, thank goodness you were there. But so many people are afraid to approach someone, or nervous about approaching someone who's in a distressed state, or simply perhaps don't care. What would you say when people hear this story? Should they be encouraged to do something like this, or what should they think about when approaching someone in a distressed state?
I think that there's a lot of stigma around suicide, and people don't feel comfortable to ask the question if someone's okay, even if someone's thinking about killing themselves. And because of that situation, then people are scared of approaching, because if they do ask that question also, they're worried about what to do next. But what Jamie did is absolutely right, which is actually engage with the individual, ask them how they were feeling, yeah, and also give them that time to listen to their story, which I think Jamie said 45 minutes. It's that kind of process that allows a person to start to talk about the reasons why life is difficult for them, and also you can start to look at the possibility of why they might want to stay alive as well. It's only through that discussion, that dialogue process.
So would you say to someone, if you saw someone in a distressed state like this, that's what you should do?
If I met a person who I felt was giving an indication, showing the triggers that they might be thinking about taking their own life, and it's, you know, it's when they're feeling down or their behaviour is very different or it's quite chaotic, I would not have a problem with asking that question.
You're trained in this, aren't you?
But asking
absolutely. This is what I suppose I wonder, that lots of people aren't trained. Jamie, you're trained. You've had experience before now of talking to people and undertaking training. Lots of people aren't, and that's a big responsibility to take on when someone's in such a fragile state.
I often wonder to myself, which is the greater responsibility to bear? Is it the person that asked the question, if a person's thinking about taking their own life, which is a very brave thing to do, but it's a very simple question. If you have the way about you to do that, and you don't need to have the training to ask that question. I wonder whether or not that's more of an issue than not asking the question at all.
And the man that you helped, did you find it easy to empathise? Did you just let him talk, or did you suggest thoughts to him?
I just sat there and listened, and that's what he needed. He needed somebody to sit down and just listen to what was going on in his head and why he was feeling like this. And he wasn't, wherever he was at the time, he wasn't getting that person, or he hadn't got that person to listen to him, or he wasn't being able to express himself properly. And it drove him to the point where he didn't want to be here anymore.
And there's a nice end to this story, though, isn't there? Just tell us about the end to it.
So before he left in the ambulance, we swapped phone numbers, and a couple of months ago I got a text and he said, "Hi, it's me and thanks very much," and he wanted me for a coffee. So I met him for a coffee and we chatted for ages and ages. And then a couple of weeks later I got a message off him to say his girlfriend was pregnant and they were going to name their baby after me.
Well done, you. And just, Terry, just before we finish, if people are feeling this way, where do they go for help?
Well, there's a number of different options. One is the Samaritans, for example, which is a listening service, and you can get through the Samaritans helpline. For younger people, you might want to go down the route of Papyrus, which helps younger people in distress through a telephone helpline. You've also got the Campaign Against Living Miserably, the calmzone.net, which gives advice to, especially around men who might be thinking about suicide or might be in crisis, to give them that support.
Well, Terry, Jamie, thank you very much for coming on and telling us your story this morning.
And of course, if you have been affected by any of the issues we've been discussing, you can also get more information on the BBC Action Line site. That's at bbc.co.uk/actionline.